Okay, the Siyata Dishmaya. We did yesterday the Ran. We read the Rambam's opinion that 3 meloches in bread, the Rambam brings stam without any splitting between our bread or their bread, is mashma of the Rambam that the Jews involved any part of the melocha of the baking of the bread, it permits it even with their bread. So why we put bread and cooked food in 2 different statements, 2 different gzeres? The answer that the Ramban gave, the chiluk is our bread, their bread. Their bread is pat akum, and Bishul akum is our bread. They cook 2 different things. But the Rambam says no, even bread, it's not dafka their bread, even our bread. And as long as the Jews involved, it permits it. So there's no difference between bread and cooking, because even our bread, which is like cooking, is considered an example of bread. So why bread and cooking 2 different things? The answer is lefi she'ein shovim medinam. They're not equal in the law. No, they're 2 different. No, the Rabban held 2 different breads. Yes, our bread, their bread. We spoke about it yesterday. But the Rambam holds that there's no difference. Our bread or their bread is all the same. That if the good Jews involved in one of the meloches of the bread permits. So l'choiro, you can't say that their bread is patakum and our bread is bishul akum, like the Ramban wanted to say in the Ravid. No, it's one bread. So what's the difference between bread and cooked food? So he says there's other differences. According to the Rambam, there's other differences. Why? Lefi she'einam shovim bedinav, they're not equal in the law. And he spells out Shapad, the bread, Kolecha the Shagar Yisrael Tanuro, any case where the Jews started the fire. Okay? Yud Gimel Amud Beis. What's that say? But you have papers. Here's papers. Here, take a paper. Yeah, no difference. It says Shapat Kolecha the Shogar Yisrael Tanuro, by bread, anywhere where the Jew started the fire, Shogi is permitted. Kedamrinan be'aug degimem meloches. We said by those 3 meloches that there's 3 meloches in baking bread. One of it is making the fire. Second is stirring the coals. Third is closing the putting the bread in the oven and closing it. V'ilu b'shar bishuleim, any other cooking dishes, meat, vegetables, legumes, whatever it is, fish. 1 second. B'shar bishuleim, any other cook. What do you want to say? Yes, sure. It's a cooler. Yes. But ba'ilu b'shar bishuleim, rather than any other cooked dishes. 1 second. Kol eicha de bishul al kachovim, anywhere where the goy cooked, even though the Jew lit the fire. Aval gad the shogar Yisrael, even though the Jew opened the fire, but the guy cooked also. Moishi's ba'alefani b'siyad Shemayim. Like the Ran and other Rishonim learn, we'll see later on, and that's really the Ashkenazim. I mean the Sephardim. Sephardim, they don't permit Bishul Akum by just lighting the fire. Only bread. But cooking is not enough that the Jew just lit the fire. You have to stir the food, etc. Not enough just to lit the fire. Umitoichen within shechalukim bilchoiseim. According to the Rambam, sins have different laws that are different than the laws. The laws of bread, the non-cooked food is different. Although bread means both bread. Our bread, their bread is din of bread. And the Rambam says as long as the Jew is involved in one of the parts, it's permitted. And that's what the Jews did for thousands of years, for many years. I was in Russia in 1990, Tafshinun. Rabbi Bleich told us we can eat the bread of the goyim. Somebody went through the place through one spike, one even toothpick. Inside the fire permits. What do you mean? But the toothpick doesn't make any difference in the fire. Fire is the same. As long as a heker, by bread, you started the fire, you stir the coals, you put the bread in, you're part of those 3 meloches, it permits it. But by cooked food, what? No, somebody in the toothpick, somebody eat toothpick. Somebody started the fire, took a toothpick, and he put in he took fire, started the fire. Or he stirred the fire, he picked it up, lowered it, was involved in making the fire, permits it. But by cooked food, doesn't help all that. By cooked food, anywhere where the goy cooked means was out in the cooking, even though the Jew lit the fire, the shogar Yisrael also was prohibited. Belongs to Israel. Israel lit the fire, but the Jew goy cooked, it prohibits. According to the Ran, Sephardim follow this opinion. Cooking means they put it on the fire? Yes. That's what a Sephardim paskin. Sephardim don't permit a goy cooks unless they put the food on the fire. Not after he lit the fire. In my house, I have a goy that cooks all the time. The Filipino cooks. What I do is I just light the fire. But best thing is that the vessel is on the fire when I light the fire. So when I light the fire, I'm doing 2 things. It's not that I light the fire and go put the pot. The go has no meaning without a fire. And I put the fire as I'm putting fire in the pot. It's different. And the food. Anyhow, that's a chatchila. But even just lighting the fire and I put to the pot, it's okay. What I do is I used to have a list in my house. Every cooked food, somebody lit the fire signs his name. But sometimes these little kids or neighbors. Rebbetzin Schultz does that all the time for me. She have a long life. It's she comes a lot of times, nobody's around, she comes, she lit the fire. So I'm here, she doesn't want to call me from the Vesmedish, she lits the fire. Anyhow, that's so that there's difference in the laws. Yes, what do you want to Yecheskel?
I have a question from
yes.
bread. For making bread, you need 11 steps. 11 steps of cooking bread. Make lamb, soak, harvest, collect, stir. What happens when it does not happen?
Well, that's a Chosh of Shabbos. When somebody wants to make bread, he has to make 11 meloches in Shabbos. Nothing to do with us. Yeah, that's also in Shabbos. You're mixing boxes. In Shabbos, there's 11 meloches in making bread. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a normal day. Goy cooked for you. So he's involved not in the harvesting, not in the grinding of the wheat and drying the wheat. And it's not what we involved with. We're not cooking it. After you ready flour and you're making now a dough, you want to bake the bread or cook. Two different things. Two different things. And here we said, if the Jew by bread is involved in one of the three melachos remits. Hello? Yes. Yes.
If the boy put it on the fire, what are you concerned about? If that's the only thing he does, and then he leaves, he doesn't mix it in a can, and he just put it on the fire. Well, what are you concerned about? It puts on the fire.
The Jew put the fire.
I know, but what you said, the boy cooked it.
The cook, he stirred the dish. He put the dish on the fire, stirred it.
Worried about, what could be worried about?
So it's Bishul Akum.
I know, but what's the problem?
Of Bishul Akum, marrying the daughters. As you say, praise the chef, or praise, or whatever the other words.
One quality is different. You need to turn up the fire, put the pot in the fire, and then take it off. They are allowed to prepare the food, but you need to turn off the fire and also put the pot or also in the oven.
It's better by according to Sephardim. Ashkenazim is enough just on the fire. Yes. What? Ashkenazim are much more lenient.
They are the Sephardim like van. We are like van and riders. I don't know. They are not allowed to.
Right.
They are like say that if you want the food, they can put nasty things in your food.
Right.
What is the source of the Rambam?
Oh, good question. But the Rambam understood that it goes on both. Since the Gemara brings three melachas by bread, so he made the whole bread. There's no difference. Not only bread of a Bishul Akum, even bread of Goy Mamesh is still permits. The man is the one that made a chiluk. Why the Gemara only brought Rabbi Yochanan in page 38 and the laws of Bishul and didn't bring it in the laws of baking. Because of that, the Ramban said it's two different things. But our bread is Bishul Akum, if Goy is involved, and their bread is Pat Akum. Now we're saying no, and Pat Akum is Mishum Yain Esech, and Bishul Akum is Mishum Chasnas. He's saying no. According to the Rambam, there's no difference our bread or their bread. Bread of Goyim doesn't matter. Is their bread, our bread, as long as the involved is Pat Akum. And there's no, so therefore, one of the malachas permits Pat Akum, their bread, and one of the malachas permits even Pat Akum when it's our bread of Bishul Akum. It's all the same. So what is Bishul? Bishul is something else. Bishul is not bread. And there we don't have the heter that if a Jew just lit the fire is enough. No. You need to do something which is nikar, something which is recognized in the cooking. The scenes are different. Umitoch, I'm reading the last line of the Ran. Umitoch, talk about Pshat the Rambam. Umitoch shechalukim bilchoisem, since we see that bread and cooked food are different in the laws, they were not being prohibited in one subject. Palginu Tana the Masisim Etarte. The Tana of the Mishnah split into two. It says bread, pot, shemen, and then it goes on to cooked food. Afal pi, even though sheshneim, that both of them, mishum bishul nesu, have been prohibited because of cooked food. Because he learns that baked and cooking is one thing. How do we know the Rambam holds as one? Because when the Gemara made a chiluk by Bishul Akum of bread, they brought the bread in the sugi of Bishul Akum, which is our bread, and they said if one of the melachas is a Jew, permits. And the Rambam made copy paste, and he said it's also by Pat Akum. The pot belongs to Goy. Must be the Rambam learns that Bishul and baking is all the same. It's all one issue, Bishul. And whatever permits Bishul, if the Jew is involved in a little bit of Bishul, permits also bread of Goy. So bread of Goy is part of Bishul. The only thing is, there's in between bread and dishes. Bread, cooking bread or baking bread. We have a heter, one of the melachas that Jew doesn't permit. Doesn't matter how bad the bread. But cooked food, then we have different halachas. And even though the Jews are involved a little bit, it's still also. As long as the Goyim is involved, also. Okay. This is Pshat in the Rambam. We have here 3 Pshat. Yes.
I don't know
The Ramban, you have here the Ramban, Rashi, Ramban, right? And the question is, what will be the difference here in Sforos and others? According to Ramban, you learn that person and person,
Yes.
that pass and
Rabbeinu Tam learns that cooked food and baked are 2 different things. And the bake and the issue of shlokois of cooking is much earlier gzeira and more short. And bread became much later, is less of a gzeira. That's why bread is being canceled.
the Ramban
The Ramban learned opposite. The Ramban learned that bread was much earlier gzeira.
pass was the Shlokas was later.
The shlokois was later, right?
Why Shlokas was later? Was Nes Chasnas.
Let's not so shchiach.
Now,
And the Ran learned before Ravid. The Ran learns why before the Ravid, because the Ran later in the middle brings the Ravid. The Ran learns that bread and oil is mishum yain nesech, and cooked food is mishum chasnas. Not only that, in bread there's 2 types of bread. It's their bread, that's the bread of yain nesech, and our bread is bishul akum of chasnas. So their bread, which is mishum yain nesech, we don't permit even the Jews involved. And our bread, which with marriage, if a Jew is involved, permits it. That's the Ran. And the Rambam, what? Yes. Yes. According to the Ran, to do different takonas, but not one is early, one is later. Like Rabbeinu Tam and the Ramban, it's rather 2 different gzeras. One is mishum yain nesech, and one is bread is mishum yain nesech. Bread and oil is yain nesech, and gzera mishum yainam, and cooked food is mishum marriage chasnas, and then bread is a gzera of yain nesech has to be their bread. And if it's their bread, we don't care if Jews involved. As long as they own it, it's still also. But our bread, or cooked food, which is chasnas, in the laws of cooking, if a Jew is involved, a little bit of the cooking, although the guy is involved and the Jew is also involved, so then it permits it. This is the Ran. Yes, what do you want to say?
When the Gemara say that baking and cooking is the same, what is the point of that? When you bake,
Who says baking and cooking is the same?
the Rambam and also the Gemara, they say that it's the same. It's the same.
Where the Gemara said that?
The Gemara says no. The Rambam say that it's the same thing, cooking and baking. And when you cook bread, you have a difference like.
Right, the Rambam learns all the same. It really should be part of it. It's only because there's not so shchiach they took it out.
Bless the bread and also because of oil. And when you bake, when you make a yerakot, how is the yerakot? Vegetables, you need to boil them, and you don't need to make it because of boil them. You look only
One second. You touched a point. Rabbeinu Tam learns that bread and cooking are 2 different things. And cooking is much earlier gzeira, and bread is 2 different gzeira. The Ramban learns that bread, baking and cooking is the same. It's 1 category. Just lemais and the takonos, they excluded shlokois because it's not so shchiach of chasnas. But really both are 1 gzeira in concept, 1 category of gzeira. But they exclude when they guys on shlokois, they excluded when they made a gzeira on bread, which should include cooking. There's one thing going to the Ramban, but they exclude cooking because not so shchiach. And later on, they added on. And bread was knocked out. This is the Ramban. The Ran learns that really bread and oil, shlokas and oil, bread and cooked food, it's two different gzeros. They may be the same category, but two different gzeros. One is because of wine, oil and bread is because of bishul, and shloko is cooked food is because of chasnas. And on the bread itself, I can define two types of bread. One bread is only mishum yainom, is their bread, and then we don't make a chiluk if the Jews involved. And our bread is doing the cooking, so then there's a chiluk if the Jew is involved. The Raiven also makes a chiluk between two types of bread. Their bread is the gzeira bread, and then we have a problem of no. He says their bread has two problems: as marriage and giyul akum. We said marriage and yainom, and he says no, marriage and giyul akum. Giyul means swallowing. It's their bread, swallowing from impure food. But if it's our bread, it's different. Our bread is different. Our bread, if a Jew is involved, it permits it. There's no giyul akum and there's no bishul akum. So therefore, the Ramban says the Raiven is like me, and he makes chilukim for a different reason. He makes it between their bread and our bread. That their bread is pat akum and our bread is cooked, is bishul akum. But pat akum is not just also mishum yainom, rather it's also mishum chasos and giyul akum. And our bread, there's no giyul akum, there's no swallowing of impure food. There's a power of chasnas. So there he says he makes the same. However, the Rambam holds that there's no difference between their bread and our bread. There's all part of the category of baking. Baking is one category, and cooking is different category. Although cooking and baking is one. That means baking. There's no difference. Their bread, our bread is it's called afiyas akum, and cooking means cooking dishes. Although cooking and baking is the same, but in an exer here is not the same. That because of different halachas. That bread doesn't matter our bread, their bread, as long as the Jews involved, one of the three melachos permits. Doesn't matter our bread, their bread. Not like the Ramban that is in our bread, their bread. That in their bread, if a Jew is involved, or one of the melachos doesn't permit. In our bread, if the Jews involved, one permits. The Rambam holds doesn't matter. Not only by our bread that it goes involved, it permits if the Jews involved one of the melachos. Even their bread, if the Jews involved one of the melachos, permits it. That's the Rambam. And Bishul Akum is different because of different halachas. Although it's the same thing, cooking and baking is the same, but the different halachas. For example, if the goy makes and one of the melachas, like for example, lighting the fire, which is not a recognized melacha, by bread, doesn't matter how their bread it permits. I mean, again, if the goy cooked the food, even though the Jew lit the fire by cooking, it was not bread. The Rambam doesn't permit it. So by bread, if the Jew is involved in one of the things, even a small melacha of lighting the fire alone, according to the Rabbi, by bread it permits, doesn't matter, baked bread of them or baked bread by us. But by cooked food, we don't permit if the Jew just lit the fire. You need to do a maise. The Jew needs to be the cooker. If the guy isn't cooking, it doesn't work. Maise Nika. Not in the Ram, but in the Rosh and others. You will see. We have to learn the Rashba. We learned today the Rashba. We'll see.
An action that's recognizable.
Yes, we'll see those languages in the Rashba, not the Rashba. What we're learning soon in the Ramban itself and in the Rashba. So let's start with the Ramban.
It's not something that is prevalent, Ben Yoma, we're not coaches, but really out.
Yes. Some people hold that there's no, that's why the Ram doesn't like the Ravid. He says it's not true. Their bread, I'm not worrying for marriage and Gula Akum, because there's no Gula Akum. Stam Gdeir of a Goy is not Basyoimo. Ordinary, a vessel of a Goy is not in the same day. So there's no Stam Lifgam, you should permit it.
One of the questions, what the first sheep in the community is Exeg is really on both, but Pas cannot take it. It's too much too hard for them. So they took it away, and then they put it back and they took it away. It really struck a state. The second side of the community basically is only was Pas, and then they saw also the Moisi struggles.
Right. That's really the difference between the Ramban and Rabbeinu Tam. The two Pshot of the Mirror is the Ramban and Rabbeinu Tam. But the Ran is different Mahalach Bechlal. Okay. Now we're going to continue on the Ramban below, the last Ramban on the page. You see here? Hidush Ramban, yes, go ahead, Yechezkel.
יש לו מפורש עם תלמוד ירושלמי.
מה הוא מחפש דפים? Yeah, I have one page.
תלמוד ירושלמי, they say that bacon and cooking is the same.
What you said, Yechezkel? Repeat.
Ram say to Rabbitan that they have a Talmud Yerushalmi mefurash, like baking and cooking is the same.
Yeah.
But according to halachas, when you bake bread, it's more very rational and more important because bread is the food from lead.
Right.
And when you boiling or cooking vegetable, it's different halachas.
Very good, Yechezkel. Good. Let's continue on the Ramban below. The last 5 lines on the bottom. You should know. I'm reading the Ramban inside. Continue on the Ramban. You see the word, the letter Daled, Maskonas Asugya Aloha. We're reading now the Ramban, what's the Maskonas Asugya, the conclusion of the Sugya. This is when we get to, that was our goal, to do the Maskona before we entered Shlokas Mamash. Because my goal is, now we did the difference between bread and cooked food, and we see that they have different laws. Then we have to go on, what is cooking? What's considered cooking? Cooking is just, what food is considered cooking, and how is cooking? Then now we learn the difference between baking and cooking. We have to go into cooking. What is cooking? Okay. We get to, that's our next week. You should know. I'm reading now the Rambam below. You should know. The decree of Shammai v'Hillel, the decree on the Jewish people not to eat bread of goyim. But the majority of the tzibur, the congregation, couldn't hold on to it. Like it says by Shemen. Although the Gemara said it by Shemen, but bread is the same. Who said that? Tosfot. Remember? Also the Ramban says. What's the proof? The Gemara didn't say it clearly, only by Shemen, only by all of Goyim. He says, Sharei Rab Simlo Yomar Lo Rab Yehuda Anosi. Rab Simlo, he told Rab Yehuda Anosi, which was the grandson of Rebbe, Beyomeinu nowadays, Tatir Esapat, he should permit the bread. Omar Len Rab Yehuda Anosi answered Rab Simlo, Im Ken Korul on Beizin Ashar, who call us a Beizin, which are lenient, are cult, light Beizin, that permits things. Therefore I say, if the rabbis of the Jewish people and the big leaders who permit the bread, mutos permitted. Even they're smaller than the students of Shammai Sidel, bechokma, with wisdom and being on the numbers. What's the proof? Rabbi Nasi was much minor, smaller than those that made the Gzeira, Talmidei Shammai Zira. Can enforce Magemor, he was smaller. In one of the Shore Tata V'Shori. Yet he said, if it wasn't that I permit two things already, I will permit the third thing, the bread. Any decree that the congregation cannot hold on to, like bread, even though was not spread in all the Jewish people, all decrees that the congregation could hold on to it. Even though it didn't spread all by all the Jewish people, they could hold on, but they didn't spread. So then, you need to permit it with a basin greater than the first with wisdom and numbers. Vim poshto, if it did spread, and shum basin, no basin can cancel it. Again, some of the people could handle it. So then, if it didn't spread, basin the same or bigger, the numbers and wisdom can cancel. And if it did spread, since majority could hold on and it spread, both things as nobody can cancel, like the 18 things. Nobody can cancel. Even Leon Novi cannot cancel. However, but once a padwam, that's the point. Aval, but if it didn't spread, but not because they couldn't hold on to it. They didn't spread because they couldn't hold on to it. But that's the same thing like Toysvis. Afilu kotel mati, even a small boy, even younger, that's more. The kotel here means smaller than the original basin. Matira permits it. However, however, it needs a heter of basin. They'll keep lo alai because they accept upon themselves. So once they accept, they need a heter. They didn't accept the decree originally, and they don't need permit. Once they accepted it, even though the Jewish people couldn't hold on to it and it didn't spread, you still need a permit, but even a smaller basic can permit. So what do we got? We have three categories. We said Tosis said the same thing, if you guys remember. Remember that? Tosis said the same thing. There are three categories. One is that it's a decree that the majority of the people could hold on to it and a spread. That's Talmidei Shammai, seen in 18 things, no, even Leonovi comes and can't. If is a Gzeira that the tzibur could hold on to it, but it didn't spread, so they need a basin greater than wisdom and the numbers to cancel. But you just need a bigger basin. But if it's two deficiencies, it wasn't spread and it's Gzeira that tzibur cannot hold on to it, that was his final answer in Toysets. Such a case, you don't need basin greater. Cancel, even a small basin can cancel it. And bread and oil, which was the same. Ushbul, the Jewish people could hold on to it. So although it didn't spread, the Jewish people could hold on to it. So therefore, Shmuel said that strength means that was bigger than Hillel, I can cancel it. Why it has to be bigger? Because as a Gzeira, the people could hold on to it. Although it didn't spread, the people could hold on to it. He's amazing greater than Shmuel says, I'll be greater than Hillel. I will care. I'm not. The af and even. And we continue the last line, the last 6 words, 7 words. The af im lo yitirua. If it's something that the tzibur cannot hold on and it is spread, even though they didn't permit it, elam reshus lakuf. Wow. There's no permission to force. I'm turning the page. Elam reshus lakuf esam. They have no permission to force the nation. Also, in this decree, lo lahalko is not to give lashes, velo ileshamen not to excommunicate. As it says, "Dechsi b'meira asher atem neoirim," and cursed that you're being cursed. V'oisi atem koivim, and you set me with a decree. I goy kulo only if the entire nation accepted it. Koloima, which means Adi can go kula, as long as we don't have the entire nation, which a majority is like the entire nation. So then it's not, if a person doesn't listen to it, you don't curse him. So what do we see from here? That if it's a decree that the majority of the congregation could hold on to it, number one. Number two, it didn't spread. Agoy kuloi, not the whole nation was able to hold it. So it's not even a curse. You need a basis to permit. But if you didn't permit and somebody transgressed it, you cannot lash him, you cannot shame him, there's no curse. But the rabbis and the students and the single people cast them with it as long as they didn't permit it. As the Gemara says, don't speak and learning to this rabbi called Evu. Kloima, which means don't say any words of Torah from his name. Is a part of the Chaveri, means the group of rabbis would follow the rules of Tahara. We can found Chuvas Goinim. Look what it says. It says in the Chuvah of the geniuses, one who eat breads of Goyim, and Malki Moiso, you don't lash him. Aval Malchichi Moiso, you protect, you rebuke him. Also, not to say any words of Torah from his mouth and Misamilash. Yes, that's what it says in Yerushalmi Psochim. Aval Mokem Shanagu Lechol Pat Shel Goyim, place where the custom is to eat bread of Goyim. Alma Ike Duchte Denog. Some people was the custom to eat, but they didn't permit it. He says he cannot give lash and a decree, but Chachomim do follow, and those that don't know. But by Yerushalmi Pirkin Garsino Milvad Min Apalter, only from a conductoria, from a company, not a boss. Bakery, that's a better word, from bakery. We don't follow it. The Jewish people don't follow it. They eat not only bread of bakery, even bread of private people, the Jewish people eat. It's not good. They say, as Chachomim and Talmidim, he needs to do that. And you don't give lashes and you don't rebuke. You don't give lashes and you don't excommunicate, but you do protest it, you do rebuke the person, and you don't say words of Torah from his name is Spanish. So what do we got? This is a big chiddush here. That bread and bread was a type of a gzeira that majority of the Jewish people could hold on to it and it didn't spread. But he paid it to permit, and they didn't permit it. 1 second. He says he holds Toysas held that they permitted bread. Some basically permitted it. He says nobody permitted it, so that's why you cannot lash and give excommunication. And Talmid Chacham, even private Talmid Chacham people should do it, and if they don't, you rebuke and you don't say words of Torah in the name, but you don't give lashes, you don't excommunicate. Why? Maybe Ava held is in the field. There's no gzeira. The whole gzeira of bread made married and children. If it's a temporal in the field, you're on your way traveling temporal in the field. There's no reason to make a gzeira. That's why it should be permitted. No. So he says they don't make a cherem. They don't give lashes. They don't excommunicate him. But they don't say words of Torah in his name is Menash. And they rebuke him. He has a svara, yes, good. But since there's no basin, Chacham Yisrael, even lower basin, that permitted it, according to Torah, says there was a lower basin that permitted it. According to the Ramban, there was no lower basin that permitted it, and therefore you don't just get lashes and excommunicate, but you rebuke, you don't say words of Torah from them. Yes, and there was some custom to eat and something.
So what they don't say, don't talk from the Am.
What? I don't know what you say. What did you say?
It says the Ramban says.
Yes.
She cannot say
The Jewish world didn't accept this gzeira and they eat all bread of goyim, even not kandatu, even though not the bakery. You cannot say a word of Torah in the Besmena, yes, he rebuked them. Nation, you're talking about simple people. But Talmid Chachamim don't do that. The student don't eat bread of goyim, according to the Ramban. According to Tosfos, there was a basin permitted and it's all permitted. Just some people are accustomed to machmir, but there was a basin permitted, small basin permitted. According to the Ramban, nobody permitted it. So you don't give lashes and you don't excommunicate because the Jews couldn't accept it. So it's too hard and it didn't spread. You don't say a word of Torah in his name and you rebuke the person.
What does Tommy do when they go traveling in areas that are accustomed to eat pasta? They bring their own bread with them?
They take their own bread or they starve. Yes. Sometimes they don't have to eat 3 days. They don't have nothing to eat for 3 days. Different, they permit themselves. Whatever, they permit themselves only if it's danger. Real tzad. Let's continue on. Vanitome. And I wonder, yes. What's up? What's water? What's the problem with water?
What's the law by water, like bread, law by water, you drink water of the boy.
Why should be a problem with water of going?
How they cook it, they don't take it out of the ground, they boil it and they put it in the bottle.
There's no cooking in water.
No cook, no water.
No. We'll see. When we learn to learn what is cooking, we'll define what is cooking. You'll see water is not part of that. Which means even if even if you're going to boil water, there's no problem with Bishul Akum. Maybe you have to worry for Giul Akum, but not for Bishul.
Shabbos, it's a different Indian.
Yeah. There's no Bishul Akum by water. We'll see. That's our next week, B'ezrat Hashem. Go into details. What is the definition of cooking?
Shabbos, there is cooking.
And baking. We're going to that.
There is, but not regular. Regular.
Comes the Ramban and he says, Vani Tome, I wondered. Vani Tome comes the Ramban and says, I'm wondering. Why Rabbi Yehuda didn't permit Rabbi Yehuda Anosi didn't permit the bread before he permitted oil? Why only permitted oil first? When it came to bread, he was stuck. Ve'efshar is possible. Because the marriage that come through bread is much greater. It's a life, it's a food of life. Everybody needs it. Told you all the time. And who breaks bread? Women. It's an action of women. He didn't want it to permit the more stricter thing, which is bread. That's why he went for the lenient one, lighter one, the light one, oil. The oil and more. Since bread is from the cooking of goyim, she worried. If you will permit some of the cooking, they will disgrace all the gzeir of cooking. Since baking was part of cooking, if I permit baking, people mezalzel on the cooking. And cooking definitely didn't want to permit. And that's why we just went to the lenient one, oil. So why didn't permit bread first? Because it's much more stricter, he says. Chaya nefesh, everybody needs it as constant. It's a ma'asav noshim. And more, if I'll permit bread, people mezalzel on cooking. So that's why you went to the lenient one, was oil. Afal Pikain, even though so. Oidol Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yudah Anosi, admit to Rabbi Simloi, the love the Kobule Beitina Shai, wasn't that he's called the lenient, the basin as lenient. Sholi Tarvayu permit oil and bread. The lawyer Choish, you won't worry, Lezilzu, Lemezalzel, the people will disgrace cooking. She came as Shemin the pot since he permitted oil and bread, or your moigolem, he will teach them, Shekol Domosh Atzibu Yecholim Lamoid boy, and goes on, he taught the people anything people cannot hold on to, and it's not being spread, you don't make a decree on them. But people will not learn from it. He wasn't worried that people will come to learn to disgrace or cooked food. This is the words of the Ramban, which is learned now. Ramban is a big game. The Ramban had a problem. Why you didn't permit bread? Why you only permit oil? The Shaila was, Rabbi Yehuda Anosi didn't permit bread. Shaila was, since he didn't permit bread, there's any basin throughout the generation that permitted or not. The Ramban said nobody permitted it, therefore you don't excommunicate, you don't lash, but you rebuke and you don't say words of Torah from him. Not like Toisves, that Rabbi Yehuda didn't permit it, but it was a lower basin later on permitted. Now that he said that nobody permitted bread, they got stuck. And he only permitted oil, so why did he permit bread? The answer is because bread is two reasons. Bread is a bigger chashash of chasnus, because it's chay nefesh, it's constant, and it's ma'aseh noshim, it's action of women, and people, through this, people will come to be zilzul, disgrace, all the rest of cooking. That's why he permitted oil, he permitted bread. And Rabbi Simloi, he admitted to Rabbi Simloi, and the only reason I didn't permit bread lemaiseh because he'll call me a light basin. But it wasn't for that. I didn't care to permit bread, even though it's constant, and even though it will come to Mezalzel. And the rest, he didn't care if it wasn't that they call light basin, because the majority of the tzibur couldn't hold on to it, and it didn't spread. What do you want to say? I was now in Amsterdam. I was now in Europe. I don't remember which city it was. It was Vienna or which other place, Budapest or someplace. There was a Goyish bakery that I had. I was in Italy. Two places I saw it. There's in some big cities in Europe. You have Goyish bakery, which have challahs. Supermercado. But it's not. They're deceiving the people. We want Jewish style. I eat Jewish style. Kosher style. What? The reform. Go to reform, but it's kosher style.
Yeah, pickles in the store.
They think that Jewish food is a style of food, like culture food, my culture food. You have Indian kosher style culture. You have Chinese culture food, and there is Jewish culture style food. No, kosher food is different. It's kosher. You can eat, otherwise you can't eat. The misperception of what is kosher about. Unfortunately, not educated. Yeah. What?
It's a problem of kashrus there.
Yeah.
The whole
Yeah. And not only that, it's a goysha bread. Goysha bread. Goysha owns. Goysha store. Who says that if a Jew baked it, it permits it? You let the fire, who says permit? Ashkenazi permit. Like the Rambam. Doesn't matter our bread, their bread. Any little thing permits. We hold like the Rambam, Ashkenazi. But Sephardim, no. A lot of Rishonim holds no. That's so simple. To buy bread in a Goyish bakery. Don't get Rishonim. Ashkenazi permit. Lenient, okay. Jews cannot hold on. It's too hard, okay? Permit, like the Rambam. All that's Sikla Aloche. Vasiklan, we conclude בגמור, רבי יוחנן אומר, אפילו פלטר גוי, even a bakery of a goy, animi lebasod only in the field. אבל בעיר, in the city, לא יהיה אפשר לפרש את רבי יוחנן מוקים שאין פלטר ישראל קומה. You can say that Rabbi Chelba and Rabbi Yochanan are arguing. And when Rabbi Yochanan said only in the field, not in the city, means in the field is only when there's no, in the city, no, only when there's no, sorry, in the field that he permitted, it's only when there's no Jewish bakery in the field. And therefore there's leniency to say, even there is a bakery of a Jew, since it's in a field and it's bakery, and there's no problem of marriage, so much kolkach, so now this is very important. It's not clear what Rabbi Yochanan meant. Rabbi Yochanan says in the field, there's two statements. Rabbi Chelbo said, when there is Jewish bakery, you're not allowed to buy from kosher bakery. And Rabbi Yochanan says in the field, you allow. The question is, when Rabbi Yochanan permitted in the field, it's only when there's no bakery of a Jew, or it doesn't matter. So Rabbi Yochanan is not clear about it. So he said, since Rabbi Yochanan is not clear, we can be lenient and say that since you're buying from a non-Jewish bakery in the field, so not shaykh somos chasnus, and it's in the field, it's permitted. Aval ba'ir, but in the city, lo, you're not allowed. Afilu, even if there is a Jewish bakery, you don't buy from a non-Jewish bakery in the city. But there's no Jewish bakery in the city. Muto, you're allowed. Here's a very big leniency of the Ramban. The Ramban says in the city, you're not allowed. The difference in city and field is the big difference. In the field is permitted even though you have another bakery of a Jew, as long as a bakery is a field. It's not a personal person. It's not a balabai. It's a bakery in a field. There's two reasons. We permit in the field. In the city, bakery in the city, you don't have two leniency, only bakery, but it's in the city. So then it's not allowed. But if you have, that's only when you have Jewish bakery. But if there's no Jewish bakery, although there's only one thing. It's a bakery of a goy, but it's in the city. But since there's no other Jewish bakery in the city, the Ramban holds us permitted. The words of the Rif, Martin you can learn them, it looks like that, and lenient towards this, what he just said. How does he get it from the Rif? The Fisher, of course, since the Rif wrote, the Rif quoted the Yerushalmi. In the place where there's no Jewish bread common, imemu, what does imemu means? Imulalea, they dozed on it, dozed. V'tiru, they dozed on it, they permitted it. Because there's a life. It's a need of life. Mashma afilu ba'ir is mashma of the Yerushalmi, since the Rabbeinu Agoda, which is the Riv, brought the Yerushalmi, is mashma that in the cities, even the cities permitted, as long as you're buying it from a bakery. Again, bakery in the field, it's permitted even if you have a bakery of a Jew. Bakery in the city is permitted if there's no bakery of a Jew. And even the Riv is mashma, because it's Chayin Nefesh. As long as bakery. But a private person, is not allowed. No matter city or field is always also. Even if you have nothing what to eat. So here the Ramban is in one hand is very lenient, and one hand is very strict. Why? Because the Ramban holds in theory that they didn't permit pot, although pot bread was not spread, right? Wasn't spread, and the Jewish people could hold on to it. So even any lower basis can permit, but didn't permit lamaisa. So you don't give lashes, you don't excommunicate, but you rebuke, and you don't say a word of Torah from him. Talmidei Chacham worry. So then even Talmidei Chacham, they're not. This is the strict part. Talmidei Chacham says, so therefore to buy from a private person, doesn't matter city or field, even if they wonder what to eat, you can't eat because they never permitted it. But to buy it from a bakery in the city, even there's another Jewish bakery in the field, and again in the field from a bakery, you're allowed to buy even there's another Jewish bakery. But in the city, Depends. If there's no Jewish bakery allowed, there's a Jewish bakery not allowed. Now we come to the heart of this statement here. There's 2 points we have to learn this. There's one of it. Our bread. I jumped those 2 lines. Sorry. I saw somebody that wrote as follows. I found in the Tshuva of the Goinim, of the geniuses, if you travel in America, you go to a small little town, whatever, it is not in New York, right? Daniel, where you live? You live in New York, right? You used to live in New York, Daniel? In New York, there's Jewish bakeries everywhere, right? But if you're not in New York, you go to Vermont, you go to Alaska, there's no Jewish bakery at all. So then what? So then he says he found a Tshuvas HaGoyinim, Muto le'echol pachel goyim, you'll have to eat bread of goyim. And the Ramban said there's a bakery, the field, even a Jewish bakery or bakery in the city, there's all the Jewish bakery allowed, even in the city, if you're in Vermont in the city. But here says something new. The Goyinim said another leniency. Mutar le'echol pachel goyim b'Shabbos. On Shabbos, you'll have to eat bread of goyim, because we combine the mitzvah of Shabbos. Im en lo patacheret, there's no other bread. That Shabbos also lisanos, you're not allowed to fast on Shabbos. You have to eat bread as oinig Shabbos. So the mitzvah of oinig Shabbos permits you ilkach muto, you're allowed to buy bread of goyim. So now we add another 3rd factor. Before we talked about bakery. Bakery, it's not a private person. Private is always also, doesn't matter what. Bakery, the permits. In the city, even to have a Jewish bakery. In the field, even to have a Jewish bakery. In a big city, you're allowed to buy from bakery, but there's no other Jewish bakery. But on Shabbos, so you're allowed to fast. So you're allowed to buy bread of goyim. The Fima Shepirashnu comes the Ramban and he adds to this. According to what we explain, Av Bechol, even in a weekday, Bechai Gavra, in such a case, She'ein Shapalter Yisrael, there's no other bakery of a Jew. Ve'elo Pater, there's no other bread, Muto. So not only on Shabbos, all the bread you're allowed, even on a weekday, when there's no other Jewish bakery, even in the city, is permitted. Shabbos, but the genius is permitted Shabbos, even from a private person. I feel in Balabai, there's no bakery. Wow. Shabbos is another reason, even for a private person. There's another one to eat, yes? So you got your answers, not me. Make your own bread. Yeah, but to make a bread, you have to have an oven. You have to have yeast. You should know. I want many times when I traveled a lot. Baruch Hashem. So I always wanted to make my own bread. What was my problem? To buy flour, it's good, but you have to buy a sifter. There's no bugs. A very thin sifter. And number 1. Number 2 is have a problem. You have to have yeast. There's no kosher yeast. So only one place I found that the rabbi told me, the Chabad rabbi told me where I can buy kosher yeast. Okay, kosher yeast. Now I have a kosher yeast, I have flour, and you buy kosher eggs. Because eggs, they have to have a certain shape in order to do to come from chickens or not. They're not mixed. So you have to, okay. So there's like a cod. And then when the top part is more skinny, the bottom is more thicker. There's a way to know what is considered eggs of chicken eggs. Okay. I bought eggs, kosher eggs. I bought yeast. But I in an oven. Whatever it is, not so simple to bake. Okay, good. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash Shoina. רוצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזרג ישראל לפיכך.